Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. This time we'll be checking out Ants, the Masses Against the Massive, developed by Mark Sheikey and released on the public domain scene sometime in the 1990s, but this was released in 1995. You can see he originally charged £25 for the software, of which you'll see it wasn't really worth it. So that's why this was then subsequently released on the public domain. On that title screen we can hear some funky music, and we can also change the difficulty level of this game. We can also change the start level as well, because this game does not have a score or even a high score table. You can start on any level as long as you know the password, and that means you can log into this game anytime you like and continue from whatever level you reached. Click on those instructions, it will give us a wonderful picture of an ant, which has been done in Lightwave. And you can see Ants, the concept and programming and all the graphics and all the design, all the music was done by Mark Sheikey. And you are the Ant Master. You are in control of a lot of ants, hundreds of tiny dots, and your job is to undergo a mass exodus towards your doom and kill all the enemies on the level. And after you've killed all the enemies on that level, then you can get moved on towards the next one, and you have to avoid sticky goo and killer plants and all kinds of things, as we shall see. So those are the options, and we can change the difficulty up to level 5, or we can press that mouse button and check out this game. This is the Temperate Plains. We begin our journey in Eden, and as soon as you start the level, the ants are already eating their way out of their housing. So what you have to do is to hold down the right mouse button and wave that over a bunch of ants, and that will highlight them. And then by clicking the left mouse button, we can then direct that group wherever we want to direct them to. In this case, there is one enemy on the level, and by directing the ants towards the enemy, they will then kill the pixels of the enemy. We start off with maybe 100 ants, and we can only carry 100 ants in our colony. Once that number has been reached, then the rest will die, and you can see if they touch one of those blue landmines, they will also die. So if they touch a landmine, they'll die, and if they touch the enemy, they'll die. But if they touch the enemy, then one enemy pixel will be removed. And if they touch any of this fruit, then they'll multiply. And from this fruit, you should be able to get maybe 200 ants gathered, of which you'll be able to get 100 at a time. And looking at the ant counter, we're now on 61. So let's move away steadily from that fruit, gather all those together, herd them up, and then march them towards that enemy. Once the ants have reached the enemy, or at least their destination, they'll start to spread out and wander around blindly. And so what you have to do is click on them with the right mouse button, wave your mouse pointer over the entire lot, and gather them up by pressing the left mouse button, and again as soon as they reach that destination they'll start to spread out, so what you have to do is select them all again and then click on a new destination, and that means they'll cluster together. If you leave the ants spread out over fruit, then they will gather as much as they can, multiply, and they will eat all of that fruit and go over that quota. So what I'm trying to do is to gather them together, which is not easy, as you can probably tell, and then we can march them towards the enemy. We now have only a few pixels left of the enemy, and what I like to do is to leave a few ants behind in the home, and with those ants I can use them to multiply like crazy. So I've selected these ants. There are 9 ants apparently still alive somewhere on this level, so you can see some of them have already found that fruit. Then move away quickly from that fruit, because now the fruit is all eaten, the maximum ants have been reached, so let's hope with all these ants on the screen I can clear away those last few pixels and destroy that enemy.
I don't want to die.
On level 2, things move up to the next gear because we only have 50 ants to start with this time, and to start with this time I'm going to split them off straight away and send those into, again, the one enemy that we have on this level. Then with the rest we can access these 3 fruits, so that means we have one more, I think, than on the previous level, which means this should be a doddle. But you can see that patch of dark green above us is actually poisoned ivy, so if we touch that poison ivy the ants will die. That means we'll have to get used to manoeuvring these ants in a tight space, and later on we'll find a level that definitely requires that. So what I did, I played all the way up to that level and found out how you're supposed to control this game in the first place, and having figured out how you're supposed to control it, I then restarted the game and this recorder, and now you are seeing the evidence of that recording. I now know how to play it by pressing wildly the right mouse button and then pressing wildly with the left. So that's the hardest fruit got already, and those mines don't pose too much of a problem. You can see I've left 1 and 2 hanging around in the home at the start, so let's just clear out these last few and then we can return to the rest and spend all of the rest of the time taking our time to multiply our creations. You can see we've now speeded up the footage, and the ant hive or the ant nest, whatever you want to call it, spreads out pretty quickly once you pile into that fruit. So the art of this game is to keep command, tight control over all of the troop, all of the ants all at the same time, and that means that they can't spread out and they can't escape, they can't walk into the poison ivy, they can't walk into the mines, or if they do walk into the enemy, at least that will take away an enemy pixel. And you can see I'm keeping one of the ants in the top corner. They will wander around blindly, but that's fine. All we need to do is to demolish, hopefully, the rest of this thing. And it takes some time to do that, but you don't have a time limit in this game. Neither do we have a score, but we do have a password system. You can see the password for this level is Aardvark.
I hate this job.
Anybody who remembers 80s music might remember T'Pow, but that was P-Tow. So maybe that's a reverse password. On this level you can see there is some wood in the way, and the ants won't eat the wood, but they can chew through it. So we can chew through that wood and make a nice clean hole in there. And so let's gather them together. They will want to break apart every opportunity, so you have to remain firm in your command and burrow that hole.
I don't want to die.
We now have 2 enemies on this level and 4 fruit. So we have, again, 1 more than the last one, but again, more enemies and less ants to start with. So that means that we'll have to be a bit more conservative with our approach. And what I like to do is to split the ants up so that some of them are wandering around in safety. So what I'm going to take this group and put them in the bottom corner. I could attack the enemy now. Are we going to do that? Yes, we're going to attack the enemy, but if we group these together, oh, one of them's walked into a mine. And you can also hear, sporadically, the ants will grumble and complain about their duties in the army, saying, I don't want to die, and things like that, reminding us of worms and, of course, lemmings. That's 98 ants, that's all I can have, so let's march them again towards the enemy and then let them spread out. And what I've found is if you group them together into a rank, they will demolish the enemy much more quickly than if you just leave those wandering around blindly. Somehow concentrating the army into a spot vacuum cleans that up, and if we just let them wander around blindly, sometimes it doesn't do as much good to the enemy to destroy them. So that's why I like to do, group the enemy around, and then if we can leave 1 or 2 ants in the corner, let's speed this up again, and again, remain tightly controlled of them around their neck and grab them and yank them towards your goal, otherwise they will break out and they will run all over the map. So you have to absolutely know the plan of action and carry that out to the letter. I haven't actually seen any other game like Ants on any other platform. And again, it reminds me of lemmings and worms with those voice speech sound effects. And to my money, this would be a perfect game even today on the mobile platforms, because it's just a pixel, and gathering up pixels and sending them into the enemy is still a fun concept even today. We seem to have gone off planet to Regulus, but regularly this isn't too bad, except for all the fruit is surrounded by that poison ivy. So we've got 2 eyeballs to destroy, and we have an extra fruit. That means we've got 5 to destroy the enemies. But of course, if we wander into that poison ivy, it will be affected by that, and all our dead bodies of all our dead friends will pile up. And I think if we touch the dead bodies, we'll die as well. So it can really be a trap. Can the home, you can see to the north, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave a few ants in the colony. And once those are bumbling around, they won't break out. They will continue to wander around blindly. And you can see a few hanging around the enemy as well, just in case we need them. And being careful at this point to absorb every single pixel of food, because if you leave 1 pixel astray, that could be the difference in this level. Let's be brave, let's try to get through there, and the hardest one would appear to be this apple. Let's get them out there. I bravely bit a huge chunk out of the apple, so let's now plant ourselves, dive into that eyeball. And stabbing eyeballs with ants in this game reminds me of AVGN yet again, but look at this. If we don't concentrate all the ants in the same place, some of them will get stuck in the scenery, and yet again, look at all those dead bodies that have now piled up. If I wander into those, I'll die, so I have to be extra careful at this point. And look at that, they've all died. Oh, something's multiplying. Look at that, the apple on the far side is now being eaten. So sometimes you have to have your eyes all over the place, and your hands are full with this mouse trying to keep a tight rein on these critters, because you can see one slip up means that we might not have enough fruit left to kill these critters or enemies or whatever they might be. I think that I need maybe at least two and a half, maybe even 3 to kill the rest of these guys, and I have 2.5 remaining, so it's going to be quite tight to get rid of that last one. And you can see ants all over the map now, roaming around. That's absolutely no problem, as long as we are very careful indeed. So with every single new level of the game, it introduces something new to the player. Poison ivy in this case means that you have to watch out and keep a better line of command. And this isn't command and conquer, maybe speed it up 1000%, because these things really will roam around. We have reached level 5, and it's Saber Wolf, and this is the precise level which taught me a heck of a lot about this game. And as you can see, we've got one ant, and we have to guide this one ant through all of this maze.
I don't want to die.
The first time I played this game, I reached this level and didn't understand it and had to redo it over and over again. And that's when I found out about the right click, left click method. By holding down and pressing right wildly and then pressing left wildly and going tap 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 tap. That meant that we can guide this thing out. So let's give him a bite to eat, so we've got a few backups on the go, and then again throw them liberally into that bottom corner. Once we have at least 20, or maybe ideally 50, we can then start to branch them off, and I like to branch off just the one ant, because that means that will remain under our pointer as it multiplies. And 74, I can't risk any more than that. Let's just use those against the enemy. You can see on the background we have some grass. And this is just the first world of the game. I'm not sure how many worlds are in the game, maybe 4 or 5. This is the forest, and the background does not change from level to level. Look at that, being very, very careful indeed this time not to get caught out on the poison ivy. But yes, every world has different background graphics, but it's got a nice texture to it, and I like that texture. They didn't have to do that, and one of these games could have a blank background. And blank black backgrounds are very boring indeed, so I'm glad they went to the extra lengths. Is this thing worth 25 quid? Well, no, not under any circumstances whatsoever. Hey, last man, we're on the last level, and I says aye, alright. So, here we go. This is a bigger set of enemies, and the bigger set of enemies, of course, take more ants to knock out. We've only got 4 fruit on this level, and we've only got 50 ants to start with it. And you have to avoid the minefield. And just like hogs of war, don't go into the because the minefield in this case is going to destroy our chances of getting anywhere in this level. This game was created by Mark Sheikey, and Mark Sheikey was a public domain game maker on the Amiga, and he created quite a few and slowly got better over the years. And he started off in 1991 with a game called Spectrum, not related in any way to the ZX Spectrum. And the ZX Spectrum, or Spectrum, was a top-down wall blaster, so you had a ship, a bit like Xenon, and you simply had walls in front of you and you're supposed to shoot the walls down to progress along that screen. And that was a very basic public domain effort. And from there he created the Challenge of the Matrix in 1991, which was a top-down puzzler. And then Erasmax appeared in 1991, that was a top-down shooter puzzler, where we had a tank and we're supposed to blow things up on the screen. So you can see that all of the games one by one developed on top of each other, and that gave him a big start on the Amiga. I just love how the ants all die and fall off the screen and fall out of the screen. At the end of that level, you don't get any bonus points or any points whatsoever, but what you do get is all the ants dying and falling off the screen at the end. Terra is a terrible level. It's more or less the same as the previous one, only this time the maze is poison ivy. So I'm going to manhandle all these ants, hopefully. Handle them at one point all the way through this, and it's a choice, which way do we go? Well, we're going to have to be brave. And of course, if one of these troops dies, or if the whole wave dies, that blocks off the entrance to one of these things. So I'm going to try and get them over. Oh, look at that, very tight indeed. Oh, look at that, they're trying to break out, they're trying to mass us on that level, and I can't risk any more of that business. So what I'm going to do is to pull them all the way down. Hopefully it's easier on the bottom level, so let's try it. Oh no, almost, not quite. And finally, phew, breathe a sigh of relief, we've got them over through that thing. So that means we can leave a few over at the starting gate, and with the rest we can now very easily take on the enemy. In 1992, Mark Sheikey released 1-on-1, which was an Atari 2600 combat clone, or a rip-off, and he released Turbo Thrust, which was a two-player side-scrolling tunnel game, a bit like the bonus levels in Turrican 2, where you can fly sideways down a tunnel, and then Roton, which was an asteroid rip-off, which I'm not quite sure whether it made my top 100 PD rip-off special.
I don't want to die.
In this level, the Empire Strikes Back. And that means that we face even bigger enemies, and it means even tighter spots, but it's similar to what we've already done before. These metal walls, of course, can't be chomped through, and so we now have 4 to get rid of 2 larger enemies. So what I'm going to do is to take care of the one in the bottom left corner first of all, take a corner off this fruit, hopefully, and then the bottom left corner can maybe be my new home. And we can leave ants in there floating around, safe enough, and they won't necessarily get killed. In 1993, Mark Sheikey released Task Force, And Task Force was a top-down laser squad type of game where we get to control 4 people and they go around shooting stuff in a kind of a block maze. And so if you like Laser Squad, check out Task Force. Also in 1993 he released Overlander, which was a Moon Patrol ripoff, and he also released Firefly, which was top-down tunnel shooter, so a bit like that side-scrolling tunnel, but this was a top-down one. And also Hideous, that we've seen already in our Top 100 PD ripoffs guide. That was this Zamzara ripoff. And then in 1994 we get to the next iteration of Laser Squad with Hilt, top-down Laser Squad game, which was the next in the development. And Roton also got an update called Xenex, which was the top-down Asteroids ripoff, which was featured in our Top 100 ripoff guide. And also Rage, which was a 360 top-down shooter, which was a development of the Arasmax formula. And Rage is actually a pretty darn good game, and I definitely recommend checking out Rage if you like very simple top-down shooter games. Lastly, in 1994 we got Global Thermonuclear War, which was a game very similar to the War Game movie, which had Matthew Broderick in it. In 1995 we got this game, Ants, and as you can see I'm very close to finishing off this level. The world of ice and snow appears, and Oedipus. Yes, our mother is gorgeous. Let's move on to Oedipus, where we find a change in the background, and look at that, 2 very similar enemies. And no poison ivy, bricks have appeared, and we're now moving on top of snow. And it looks like we're really bunching together girl ants, or at least they're using a very bright pink colour to differentiate selected ants from ants that are just wandering around. So it's a very fetching pink colour, and so that means we can see what's going on, and we have 4 fruits just to take out 2 enemies, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Mark Shiki released Outliner in 1995 after this, and that was a high-res Asteroids clone, and he moved on to Hilt 2, Burnout and Blade that we've already seen in the Ripoff Special. I have a massive soft spot for Ants. It only got 43% on Lemon Amiga, 30% in Amiga format, and 23% on Amiga Power, which gives this an average score of 3 out of 10. Thank you for viewing this Playguide and review.